Good morning, everyone. My name is Maya Luria with TMC for Seniors. I am so excited that we are back in person with our classes. I know we've all had sort of a long, hot summer, and this month is Fall Prevention Month. And so we're going to kick this off with Eat to Stay on Your Feet, Nutrition Fall Prevention. I have Mary Mellady here with me. Mary has been a longtime presenter for TMC for Seniors. She is the Director of Connected Health and Wellness with TMC. And I'm so happy that you're here today, Mary. This is a topic that we haven't discussed before, and I think it'll be interesting just to see, what you've been able to discover as far as nutrition and fall prevention. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to in person. All right, so as you know, my name is Mary, and I am a dietitian, and I work in the wellness department. So I focus a little bit more on kind of healthy behaviors and lifestyle factors rather than just solely the very medical nutrition therapy aspect of nutrition and our overall well-being. So today we're going to talk primarily about nutrition, but we'll do a few other fun little activities that I like to incorporate. So, and I also am a big quote person, so I have quotes on every slide. I probably won't read them, but I like to discover new quotes. But I do like this one, that there's no diet that will do what healthy eating does. We don't believe in diets, although I'm going to mention one diet. It's called a diet, but we really like to refer to it as just a healthy lifestyle. But the concept of a diet implies starting something and then stopping something. And we really just want you to find a healthy way to eat for life. Okay, so that's why we don't believe a lot in diets. Okay, so we are going to look at both some nutrition factors, what a healthy diet is, what are the healthy components of a diet, how that can help us attain a little bit better balance to stay on our feet. Some of the important vitamins and minerals, hydration. We talk a lot about staying hydrated in Arizona, but it does play a big factor in our balance and staying on our feet and staying vertical. And then what I was able to find in the research. And here's a little foreshadowing. It wasn't anything earth-shattering, but anyway, it will support what we're going to talk about today. And then I wanted to talk about just a few lifestyle factors because they're impacted by what we eat, which is our healthy weight, any medications and alcohols that we may take. And then we are going to end with practicing a few balance activities, okay? And they will be good activities for both our in-person audience and well as those at home can try it while they're watching. Okay. So our nutrition facts. So what is a healthy diet? We hear that all the time. Just eat a healthy diet. Our primary care physician tells us that. We may read an article, eat a healthy diet. And sometimes we're pretty aware of what that might mean. And other times people might be thinking, well, I think I eat a healthy diet, but I don't know for sure. And we don't get a lot of explanation in some cases, or sometimes we get misinformation. So a healthy diet is that we want to eat more of these foods, real whole foods. So when I say real foods, I'm thinking about foods that we would easily recognize, that our ancestors would easily recognize. Our grandparents would easily recognize a corn tortilla. Corn tortillas have been around forever. However, if we show them a bag of Takis, do you all even know what a Taki is? No? Okay, well, don't. But it's a corn-like product that our current kid generation is really enthralled with, and they're terrible for you. They're highly processed. So when we're thinking real foods, we want to think about things that have come from the earth, from the farm, without much changes to them or without a lot of additional ingredients. I would love for you to, that's not working there, that's why, focus on a lot of vegetables and fruit. These are great sources of vitamins and minerals in particular. Some of the vegetables can be a great source of calcium, which is important for our bones and for what we're talking about today. Vegetables and fruit are also one of our primary sources of fiber, which is also really good for our GI tract, our gut. We've talked a lot in many of the presentations about the connection between a healthy gut, a happy stomach, and anything from how our brain functions to our heart to our immune system. So we want to keep our tummies very happy, and eating a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables or frozen fruits and vegetables are a good way to get some of that extra fiber and extra phytochemicals that help to maintain that healthy bacteria that lives in our gut. We want you to eat more of whole grains. When I say whole grains, I am thinking unprocessed. I am thinking the true color of the grain. So let's think about rice. Rice is not naturally white. Rice is white when we bleach it and process it. So think brown rice. Think about brown whole grain breads. And I don't just mean like a tan colored bread, because there's a lot of tan bread out there that is not whole wheat bread. So looking at the ingredients label, a whole grain bread, your first ingredient is going to say 100% stone ground wheat, whole wheat flour. Those are the only two grains that's what you're looking for as your first ingredient, okay? That's going to indicate that that is a whole grain bread product. Thinking again, referring back to the corn tortillas, that's a whole grain product versus a flour tortilla. Whole grain pastas rather than the processed white ones, okay? So a lot of the times we hear that grains and breads aren't good for us. And that can be true if you're thinking about processed grains and processed baked goods and things like that. But the whole wheat grains, quinoa and barley, those are all wonderful grains for us, and they provide a lot of nutrition for us, particularly around fiber. And they provide our body with the primary source of energy, which we need, and we'll talk a little bit more about in some upcoming slides. So, whole grains. Lean protein sources. Protein is essential for our muscles. Muscles are essential to hold up our skeletal frame. So our skeleton and our muscles together help with our balance and help to keep us on our feet. I didn't note whether these protein sources come from animal products or from plants. That is going to be entirely up to you and what your preferences are around your diet. I will say that we encourage people to eat lean protein. So if you're going to choose an animal one, looking at fish, looking at a chicken or a turkey that you've taken the skin off of, because that's where a lot of that extra unnecessary fat lies in your meat products. And to choose to have a few meatless protein meals every week. And that can be something that is vegetable based and you're getting your protein from beans. It can be that you're getting your protein from nuts, or it can be that you're getting your protein from something like a soy protein, okay? So trying to incorporate a little bit more frequently meatless meals and fish as your source of protein. Fish is a great source of omega-3 fatty acids, which is really good for our heart. It's really good for our brain. Omega-3 fatty acids are also great for our skin and for our hair. So in general, it's a good source for us. If you're not a big fish fan, there is, we do recommend that you take a supplement if you're not eating any sources of fish, but there isn't great research around that the omega-3 supplements act in our body the same way that eating real fish does. So eating the real food is always better than taking a supplement if you can, okay? We also want to, if you're able to, choose low-fat, non-fat sources of dairy. This is a great source of calcium without having to take a supplement. Many people might be lactose intolerant, so we understand that dairy isn't always a first option, but things like almond milk and soy milk and rice milk aren't always a good substitute if you're looking for calcium and protein, okay? There are a lot of great milks out there now that are non-dairy that have supplemented with extra protein. They're using a pea protein or they might be using some other type of non-animal type protein in their milks that have boosted the protein level, but the calcium level. Almond milk is still a good source of calcium, but like the rice milks and the soy milks often aren't a great source of calcium. So if that's what you're looking for, that might not be your best source. But whole milk, I hear a lot about whole milk again and whole milk fats, and that's good for us. And there still is no great research around. It's not good for our hearts, for one thing. And I did read one research article, and I think I mentioned this in another talk, that there is some linkage between if you're drinking and eating whole fat milk products, that does increase your chances of a reoccurrence of certain types of cancers. Okay, so not a great choice at this point in time as far as the research goes. Okay, so we still encourage you to do a 1% or non-fat, whether it's yogurt or milk or cottage cheese, something like that. The other concept around cheese, now that I've said cheese, is enjoy your cheese as cheese. Don't just enjoy it as an additive to everything. And I know I've said this, so if you've been in my class, like I'm repeating myself, and I'm sorry, but it's a point worth making, that if you're eating a burrito, you're eating a sandwich, you're eating a very healthy hamburger, you're likely not going to taste the cheese on any of those. So don't waste your saturated fat or your calories. Enjoy a piece of cheese for what piece of cheese is, and just enjoy that piece of cheese, okay? At that point, cheese isn't going to provide you with any significant amount of protein or calcium, so just enjoy the pleasure of eating that cheese, okay? And we would also like you to eat less of the following: processed foods. Processed foods, I'm thinking, are like a lot of our baked boxed goods or things that come in packages. The more packaging, the more likely is there's additives, whether it be salt or extra sugars or extra fats to it, whatever it might be, to make that product a little bit more stable. And this automatically lowers the nutritional value of that product, of that food that you're eating, while increasing the number of calories and probably salt and sugar and fat that you're getting. So try to eat less of over-processed foods. We want to, it's nothing new, eat less sugar. I severely have a problem with sugar, and I'm well aware of this. So if you do too, you're not alone, and it's not a terrible thing. We just need to do our best to try to minimize how much extra sugar we're getting whenever, and be aware. Do you know where all your sugar is coming from? Do you know in what you're drinking, how much sugar there is, or in other food products? Or are you just eating, straight sugar things like candies and cookies and things like that? So know where your sugar comes from to start with, and then maybe think about, okay, what do I absolutely really want so that I'm enjoying my food, and what can I substitute with something else? We want to reduce and eat less of saturated fats. So there are the healthy kinds of fats, which are the unsaturated fats that are liquid at room temperature. These are like the olive oils, the canola oils, things like that are good for our heart, that we want to have more of that kind of a fat than the saturated fats, which are solid at room temperature. So think about the old-fashioned Crisco, the white. I still very distinctly remember those blue cans that were just solid white. If you'll notice, coconut oil looks very much similar. So coconut oil is very similar to Crisco in that amount of saturated fat that it has. So even though there is some research around coconut oil that it's supposed to be healthier for us because it's high in this MCT oil, there's still no good research that it is in fact good for our heart. So coconut oil is really good for our hair and for our skin, for our dogs' noses and paws. So good, but maybe don't ingest it, okay? Because it is that solid at room temperature. So if you think about it, solid at room temperature, solid in our veins, okay? And that makes it harder for our body to process. So eliminating or reducing the amount of that saturated fat. And also salt, because too much salt in our diet can affect our blood pressure. So if any of you have high blood pressure, you've probably heard from your physician or from a dietitian that you want to limit your salt intake because salt holds on to water and that increases our blood pressure, okay? And a high blood pressure can, in fact, make ourselves a little bit more unstable on our feet, as well as a low blood pressure can do the very same thing. So we want to try to achieve a normal blood pressure more often than not. So that salt can play a big role in that. So and we also want to, as we talked earlier, eat less of those white grains. Just because they're not very nutrient dense, they're highly processed. They don't provide us with nearly as much fiber or vitamins as a whole grain would. So this kind of sounds like, anybody want to tell me what this sounds like? I've been here enough. Somebody's got it. Thank you. Winner in the front. It does. It sounds like the Mediterranean diet, which is eat more plant sources of protein, lots of vegetables and fruits, whole grains, olive oils, that unsaturated oils, and if you are going to eat a animal protein, that it is probably more fish than anything else. And I will stand behind the fact that I don't believe the Mediterranean diet is a diet. It's not something you start or stop. It is a way you live because it kind of goes with the whole philosophy that they are more active. They find sleep to be very important, and they also combine it with drinking healthy sources of fluids. Okay, so any questions about that? Well, we're going to ask questions at the end. Sorry. Okay, so around the vitamins and minerals, it is not a shock. I think if you have heard anything about healthy bones, you know vitamin D and calcium are our two main nutrients that we need for healthy bones. So when we're thinking about that, we're going to stay on our feet, okay? Again, at the beginning, I said we need our skeleton, our bone structure. That needs to be pretty solid. And so we need the vitamins from the vitamin D and the calcium mineral to help us strengthen those bones. Those are the two things that help to lay bone down and create new bone and create a good bone density. And then our muscles are going to attach to those. So that's why a protein source is important, because protein is the building block for our muscles. So when we're talking about vitamin D, it helps the body to absorb and use and retain that calcium. So that's why oftentimes you see a vitamin D and calcium supplement together, or it's been fortified together because they work together. And some good sources, again, is that fatty fish, the salmon, tuna, mackerel. Dairy is a great natural source of vitamin D. Fortified orange juice, because a lot of people might have issues with dairy. So there's a lot of orange juice products out there that are now calcium and vitamin D fortified. And this is, we encourage this in a lot of like pregnant moms that aren't able to drink milk, or older adults that can't tolerate the milk. Again, going to other talks, we're not big proponents of juice. We would rather you eat the real fruit. But if you are not eating any of the other sources of vitamin D, then this might be an alternative for you. Just be aware that juice is very calorically dense. So a serving of juice is half a cup. That's pretty small. And we can drink a lot pretty quickly as individuals without even knowing that we've consumed, 200 or 300 calories of juice. So just be very aware of that. And then egg yolks. For the longest time, I don't know if you guys remember that we were saying, you couldn't have more than 2 eggs a week, that eggs are bad for us, they raise our cholesterol, we have to only eat egg whites. And now we know that it isn't the actual cholesterol in food that impacts our blood cholesterol levels as much it is the saturated fats in the foods we eat. So the new recommendation is that you can eat up to 5 eggs a week pretty safely, even if you have elevated cholesterol. Okay. And then calcium. Calcium is that mineral that's essential that really helps to form that bone. And it also helps, interestingly, with muscle contraction. So it's helping to build that skeletal system that we need that also holds on to those muscles So without that calcium, also our muscles may not contract quite the right as quickly as we normally would like them. They also might cramp, and that muscle function is essential for keeping us upright and on our feet and allowing us to do what we want. So calcium is an essential mineral in our diet. We can find it in dairy, but again, if you aren't eating dairy, leafy greens like spinach, kale, great source of calcium, as well as some of the grains that are fortified, like some of the whole grain cereals are fortified with calcium as well. Okay. All right. Hydration. So if we are dehydrated, that can lower our blood pressure, and it can cause us to feel a little dizzy. It can cause confusion, can also make us feel a little bit tired. So think about if we are not feeling great and we're walking along and we might be a little bit dizzy, are we going to be as easily able to, sorry, I'm off the camera, but that's okay, easily able to walk in, one step in front of the other without feeling a little unsteady? So hydration is critical. Confusion and that hypotension, when you stand up, you guys ever got that orthostatic when you stand up and you get lightheaded? That can often be related to hydration status. But it also can, in extreme cases, cause delirium, which all increase our risk for falling. So staying hydrated is key, especially here in Arizona. Even when it's not sunny, hot, it's still pretty dry. It's a dry heat, right? But that doesn't make it any better, I know. But that does dry out our skin. It does prevent us from retaining water inside our bodies. So it's essential that we drink often and frequently throughout the day. So drinking a glass first thing in the morning. Do any of you keep a glass of water by your bed? Yep. Okay, do any of you actually drink the water that you keep beside your bed? Every night I bring a big bottle thinking I'm going to drink, and I don't. But so anyway, drink a glass when you first get up in the morning before you do anything else. All right? Use an alarm or just kind of a little reminders, however you remind yourself about things. Maybe stick a little Post-it note in each room as you walk in and go, oh, you're right, I need to drink more water, to remind you that you should be drinking more water. Drink a glass of water prior to each meal. That does two things. It not only gets you an extra glass of water, that becomes your routine to drink before you eat, but it also starts to set your body up that you're putting things into it, and it might get the brain connection to your stomach going a little bit quicker so that you fill up a little sooner, okay? Adding fruits and vegetables into your water. I think I hear this often called spa water, because you only ever see people really wanting to do this when they're at a spa, but it is so lovely to put watermelon in a glass of water. It tastes so good, or strawberries, or mint, or cucumber, or even a slice of lemon. But if you have any extra fruit, just dump it in a glass of water with some ice. It makes it just taste like so refreshing, like you're drinking a whole new beverage. Super easy to do. You can do it with frozen fruit too. It's already frozen. It can act like your ice cube. Try flavored sparkling waters. There are so many brands of sparkling waters now. It's absolutely ridiculous. And there's so many different flavors too. It's insane. From pomegranate to hibiscus to watermelon. I think I have in my refrigerator right now. I've got a thing for watermelon, clearly. But it's a great way to get some more fluids in your body that's fizzy, if you like that fizziness, without any extra calories, okay? And then the final one, I don't know. A lot of people tell me they like to use fun water bottles, that motivates them. Whether or not they have the markings on them that tells them how much they've drinking throughout the day, or they can put different travel stickers. Like I saw one bottle that you could put a sticker on for every national park you've been to. So if that motivates you, or a fun mug, if that's going to get you to drink something more, then that's great. Sometimes drinking through a straw will get you to drink a little bit more than having to drink out of a cup. Just a little tip. All right, so we want to stay hydrated, because without that, we could get dizzy. We may not be, it may cause some different, some issues with vision. So, drinking. What the research tells us. One study I found said that a diet rich in fish, vegetables, and nuts is associated with lower risk of falls and injury. What is in all of those is probably sources of calcium, because there's calcium in all of those. They're all, at least the nuts are good sources of protein, so that kind of makes sense too, right? So nothing like shocking or shattering there. And then diets high in cheese. Like I just told you not to eat a lot of cheese. But anyway, diets high in cheese, it could be cottage cheese or yogurt, red meat, and lower in, and sugars are associated with risks of fall. I wonder if that is because it increases our blood pressure. When we eat a lot of those cheeses and meats, they're generally associated with more salt, might be associated with higher blood pressure. They didn't give you a direct reason why, but I'm going to surmise that that is why. And it probably also is related to our weight status. If we're eating a lot of cheese and a lot of sugars and red meats, chances are we are probably not at the healthiest weight that we could be at. And then a meta-analysis, which just means that a group of scientists, really smart, went through and read a whole bunch of research, and they pulled it all together and distilled it down to the most important facts, which are the best research studies for me because they just tell me what I need to know, is that vitamin D and calcium supplementation is associated with a significant reduction in falls and falls with injury. So I think what they're saying here is that because most people in America don't eat the best diet. Would anybody disagree with that? Yeah. We are not great about eating healthy diets. So that's hence why probably a supplementation has helped a large percentage of people build stronger bones so that they reduce their risk of falls, is because we're not eating enough healthy foods. Okay, that's what the research says. We want to eat more vitamin D and calcium. We want to eat healthier foods. All right, what does our lifestyle need to look like? All right, we've talked a little bit about a healthy weight. It allows you, more importantly than anything else, the entire reason that we want to stay on our feet and have good balance and have a healthy weight and eat healthy is because it will allow us to have the quality of life that we want for as long as we possibly can have it, right? We want to age with not only grace, but with firecrackers. We want to go as far as we can, as long as we can, and do everything we want to do. So a healthy weight is going to help us achieve that. Because if you think about think about carrying around with you 50 more pounds, just like a vest or a backpack. Has anybody ever backpacked? I backpacked with 30 pounds, and that was just like, whoa, I do not want to do that again. Or somebody who's pregnant, once you've had a kid, you're like, wow. Okay, yeah. So just think about it from those perspectives. When you're carrying that extra weight, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do exactly what you want to do. It becomes more difficult on your joints. So you have some joint degeneration potentially, or it's just harder to stand up. It might be harder to walk. And all of those things are going to increase our risk for falling. Being overweight or underweight increases our risk for falls. And this is well documented. So we've just talked about why you wouldn't want to be overweight. It just is more difficult, right? You're carrying that weight around. It's just harder to stand up. It's harder to get from point A to point B. You're uncomfortable. Being underweight can almost have as much of a detrimental effect as being overweight. And the reason is because if you're underweight, you're probably osteopenic, so meaning your bone density isn't great, so you're at higher risk for bone fractures. And your muscle mass probably has deteriorated somewhat. So there's that, here I'm telling you, don't be overweight, but I'm also telling you don't be underweight. And the thing is, as we age, it becomes a little bit more difficult to regulate that weight, right? Because either we can't be as active as we used to be, and maybe that's what we relied on to manage our weight. But then maybe we lose our appetite because, well, we're just not as active. So it's a very fine balance to finding that healthy food and that healthy weight. If you find yourself on either one of those extremes, maybe you need to talk to a dietitian or with your primary care about, hey, I'm struggling and I don't know which way I should go. Okay? Starting off with eating a healthy diet and really focusing on and writing down what you're eating and what your activity is can be a good indicator for you. It kind of points you in the right direction as what am I eating or what am I not eating? All right. And then a healthy weight is associated with lower risk of weight-related diseases, and we know that. If we're overweight, we're at higher risk for heart disease, cerebrovascular incidences, and cancers. So, and then I really like this quote: motivation is what gets us started, habit is what keeps us going. So hopefully this talk will motivate you to take a look at your diet and start to track what you're eating, and then that becomes your habit that keeps you going, okay, to make a change. Medicines and alcohol. So there's a lot of research out there about what medications can be related to falls. We do it here in the hospital where the pharmacist will look at anybody that has a potential risk for fall and look to see what medications they're on to see if they have any increased risks so that we can really be proactive and keep an eye on those particular patients. In particular, it's any of the medications that might suppress your central nervous system. And that makes sense. Our central nervous system is what kind of keeps our equilibrium, helps us respond to things coming at us, helps our extremities to respond. These can include both prescription and over-the-counter medications, and might be something like an antidepressant or even an antihistamine that we might take for allergies. So if you are concerned about your balance, okay, because when we're talking about staying on our feet and staying upright, that sort of begins with balance, right? So if you're having any concerns about balance and you're on medications, you might want to have a conversation with your primary care or a pharmacist about, am I at a further risk and what can I do to mitigate that risk based on these medications I'm on, all right? Also alcohol, we know when we drink, we aren't as mentally acute as we might be if we weren't. As we age, those effects of alcohol are increased. So it increases our risk for falls as we age and drink. Put those two things together and we kind of have a little bit of a perfect storm. So thinking about that, the Mediterranean diet encourages alcohol in moderation. Moderation is 2-3 drinks a week, and one drink is not a wine goblet. It's like 6 ounces of wine. Okay, so be aware of your portion sizes. And finally, thinking about what can we do every day to work on your balance. Does anybody think about their balance? Do you actively work on your balance? Anybody? Oh my gosh! For those of you online, almost everybody in this room raised their hand. Okay. Well, okay, here's my little anecdotal story. So in February, I fell off a ski lift and tore my knee up and had surgery and have been going to PT. And he had me do some balance things. And I'm terrible. And I said, oh, my balance has always been bad. And he goes, I bet that's why you fell. I said, no, I fell because my husband's ski was on top of my ski. And he said, no, you fell because your balance is terrible. And I said, no, I didn't. It was my husband's ski. And he said, no, it wasn't. And since then, I've been doing all sorts of balance exercises. And no one is allowed to repeat this, but he was absolutely right. It wasn't my husband. It was probably my fault because I still had one foot on the ground that if I had had better balance, I might have been able to not fall. So thinking every single day about our balance as we age is essential, because if you don't feel comfortable walking somewhere, if you're always worried that you're going to fall off a curb or that you're going to misstep or you're going to trip on a little lip, is that going to reduce your desire to go and do things? Sure. Yeah, it would me. I never want to fall again. So if that's a thought in your brain, oh, I might fall, oh, I might trip, and that's concerning to you and preventing you from doing something, then balance exercises are something you really, really, really want to start to incorporate. And they're super easy. They're so simple. Not the one my PT has me doing. But anyway, we're not going to do those today. It is as easy as standing on one foot. I'm standing on one foot. No, I'm standing on one foot. Okay. And brushing your teeth. You know you're supposed to brush your teeth for 2 minutes, right? So 1 minute, do you brush your teeth on one foot? 1 minute, brush your teeth on the other foot. If you're in the bathroom, there's a counter there, so you can always have something to grab. Super easy, right? We talk about building habits, and the best way to build habit is to connect it to another habit. If you always brush your teeth at morning and night, those are two excellent opportunities, unless you're like me who does laundry while you brush your teeth. Don't do that. Stand at your bathroom sink and stand on one foot to the other. If it is too hard for you to stand on just one foot, the next thing that we've talked about here is just shifting your weight. Or even just standing at the sink and closing your eyes. Have your hands next to the sink so you can always grab yourself. But just even standing, and maybe have somebody watch you. Are you a swayer? If you're swaying, then you need to work on your balance. Okay, so can you close your eyes and stand still, hands in different places, and not sway all over? That might be your first one to try. Can you just shift your weight from foot to foot? You don't have to stand there, but just shift your weight. Can you do that? That's the next thing you're going to work on. Okay? I think you all should stand up and just do that. There's a chair in front of almost all of you, or there could be. You don't have to. I'm not going to force you. I'm just going to shame you if you don't, but I would not do that. Or you can grab onto the post, or you can do whatever you need. Just make sure you have something to grab in front of you. And all I want you to do, and if you're home, I want you to do the same thing. Just hold on to a chair. Make sure there's a chair in front of you. I just want you to step from side to side. Just let your feet just off, right foot to left foot. Right foot to left foot. Yeah? How's that feel? Pretty okay. You might want to graduate and close your eyes while you're doing that. Don't do that here, please. But, that might be something extra you want to do. You might want to go to one foot and stay there for a minute. Go to the other foot and stay there for a few seconds. Slow that down a little bit. Because then eventually, you're going to get to that single leg balance. The other idea that I had on here for you is to think about, it's traditionally the sobriety walk, but it is used as a sobriety walk for a very good reason, because it tests your balance if you're walking heel to toe. That isn't an easy thing to accomplish, I will tell you. So that's why it's sort of farther down on the list. Okay? And maybe you're not like touching your heel to your toe. Maybe it's just looking on the ground and trying to walk in a straight line. Think about that. How does that feel? These are very simple exercises. Well, look at you over there, overachiever, walking backwards. Holy cow. Okay. And then a step up is your last one. You don't need any equipment for a step up. You can just step up onto a curb, on a step in your backyard, at the mailbox, just stepping up and down. Make sure, again, you have something to hold on to, right? Just that act of having to use your muscles to step up, even if it's just a little distance, is a good act to get yourself a little more balanced, okay? That idea of shifting your weight so that while you're walking, if you come across something and you trip a little bit, your other foot can catch you because you have strong muscles, because you're eating protein, because your skeleton is nice and strong, because you're eating calcium and vitamin D, okay? So incorporating what you're eating with practicing your balance is going to be the best key to you guys having better balance and staying upright on your feet. Does that make sense? I really like this. So if you were a mom ever, Is this a natural motion for all of you? You know, rocking that baby back and forth. After my kid was grown, I still found myself watching him and doing this thing. Like, oh, I'm not holding you anymore. I don't need to do that. Anyway, just that shifting of your weight is really helpful. Okay, that toothbrush thing and standing on one foot is pretty easy to do too, as far as time goes. All right, as soon as you feel too old to do things, that's when you do them. Okay, so that's why we want you to have the highest quality of life you can, and that's why balance is so important, because balance just integrates throughout our life in things that we want to do. All right, that was pretty short. Oh, Maya's wearing glasses now. How cute she is with glasses on.
So thank you, Mary. So I had a couple, actually had some questions that came in. One was about saturated fats. Can you just sort of discuss again about what saturated fats are found in? Because somebody asked, are they not processed foods? So if you could maybe just sort of share that information again.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good question. So saturated fats are predominantly found in a lot of animal-based products. So saturated fats would be found in meats, and that is going to look like the marbling in a meat. It's going to look like that fat that's on the backside of the chicken skin, or the fat that's around the cuts of meat. It's going to look like butter, or it's also found in dairy products. So cheeses that are more solid and hard, more likely to be high in saturated fats. That is not a rule across the board that anything that is a solid fat at room temperature, because you have nut butters that are solid, but those are unsaturated sources of fat, and as is avocado. Other sources, and so in processed foods, a lot of the saturated fats are coming from the types of fats they're using in those products. Whether it's a baked good, they're probably using more butters or saturated fats in their baking versus an oil or an unsaturated product.
Okay, great. And what about intermittent fasting? Can that increase your risk of falls?
Well, it's an interesting concept. It can, if you are not used to the intermittent fasting. And so intermittent fasting there's two types. Well, I'm sure there's more, but there's two main types that we talk about. There is the 5-2, and 5 being where you eat a pretty healthy, normal number of calories, and then 2 days a week you eat only 500 calories. So if you're doing that methodology on those 2 days that you're eating a lot fewer calories, you might be a lot more inclined to feel lightheaded, or you might have that orthostatic hypotension when you stand up because you're not getting a lot of calories on those days. So if you have balance issues, I don't think I would recommend that type of intermittent fasting. The other type of intermittent fasting is the 14 to 16 hour fast that we see people do, from like if they stop eating at 6 o'clock in the evening and then go and don't eat breakfast until 8. Your risk there might be you might be a little bit more lightheaded when you wake up. It's not usually the case because we normally sleep all night anyway. And to go the 14 hours isn't that unusual for our body, normal functioning.
Okay. And then the last question I had was about iron. Is that something we should consider when we're thinking about nutrition and fall prevention? Using, having iron in your diet.
Iron is important, but it's more about the red blood cell production. And that is important for overall health. So if you are iron deficient, that could very well impact your blood pressure and your balance, but that would be something you would want to talk with your doctor about. As far as iron supplements can be very hard on your stomach for a lot of people. So trying to eat a lot of iron-rich foods like the spinach and tunas and things like that would already be built into a healthy diet is how you're going to prevent that. But that would be a conversation if you've had your blood work done with your physician. But yes, it can impact your balance if you have, if you're anemic, that might impact like you're feeling kind of weaker and not as strong.
Great. So I think you covered everything that I had online. I want to thank you for my online audience for being here. You covered an awful lot of topics, lots of things that we're still going to be discussing throughout the month. Just to share with everybody, we do have a talk today about falls and fractures in older adults. We have medication and fall safety coming up next week as well. We have a home safety check, and we also have stay steady and stay strong on your feet with our not pediatric therapy, sorry, our adult therapies. And then we do end it off with the No Falls Fair, where people can receive a mini assessment of their balance. So this was sort of perfect. You sort of incorporated everything into one. Mary, so thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you to answer any questions online.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being here today. We look forward to seeing you again. Our next talk will be falls and fractures in older adults, causes and prevention. That's going to be with Dr. Jens Goodman from Tucson Orthopedic. He will be here today at 4 p.m., so please join us then. If you have any questions or would like to get the link for that, please give us a call at 520-324-1960. Thank you.